Hi everyone, welcome to the tutorial section of this workshop. So this next 60 minutes or so are basically going to be a tutorial breakdown of the vinyasa movement. So that sequence of poses that you take in between sides if you go to a vinyasa class or ashtanga or any of these practices. And these poses are really, really important. They're fundamental poses that you're going to find, these shapes recreate themselves over and over again as you practice. So the more familiar you get with these shapes in your body, the easier everything else gets. So let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome. So for this part, I want you guys to grab your 2 blocks if you have them at home, then that's awesome. If you don't, you can use books, big books, or anything that kind of is similar. And just bring them to the sides of your mat. You can start them at the low height. We're just gonna have them there in case you wanna use them for forward folds and down dogs and things like these, and if you don't want them, then that's totally fine. And we're gonna start standing. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to go over is basically mountain pose. So for all of these things, I'm going to give you guys a couple of options, like 1 to 2 options, depending on what the focal point of your practice is, maybe today or in the future or whatever. For all of these poses, there's a way to do them that's sort of more flexibility focused and then more strength focused. So maybe take the thing that doesn't come easily to you. So for me, flexibility comes naturally, so I tend to go towards the strength sort of basis of the pose. But if you're naturally strong and you don't want to open your shoulders, then maybe try the shoulder opening version of the pose. Okay, so for mountain, 2 options. Traditional for this posture, when we go to inhale and take the arms up, some people like to have their big toes touching and their heels about 1 inch apart. I personally don't like this because my knees clank together. And so for me, I'm gonna take my feet at about hip distance apart, but this is totally your choice. However you choose to stand, I like to lift the toes up off the mat and really root down through all 4 corners of my feet and then gently lower the toes back down and really engage through them. So I want you to feel like you're spreading your feet apart, like physically do that on the mat, and you'll feel your legs engage all the way up to your hip points. Yeah? So that's the first sort of foundation of this posture, really rooting down into the ground and feeling that energy come up through your legs. From here, what's going on with the pelvis? So there's a lot of do I poke my butt out? Am I hard tucking the tailbone? You just want a neutral pelvis here, but with core engagement. So neutral pelvis, but think still about drawing your navel in towards your spine, okay? And then from here, your 2 options for the arms. I'm gonna show it this way for all of you at home. The 2 options with the arms are these, okay? So you can inhale up to this place of basically finding a vertical line, right? So this is essentially a handstand, right? And I'm gonna take my palms together and take my gaze up towards my thumbs, and I'm looking for just, again, this straight stacking sensation of hand over shoulder, over hip point, over foot, okay? So this is the stronger version of this pose. And then if you're looking for some shoulder opening in this pose, then your other option, again, is take the arms up and maybe reaching back. Right? So 2 different ways to do it. Here, you're lifting the shoulder up out of the shoulder girdle, which takes a little bit of strength. And here, you're sort of opening up the chest up towards the sky. Okay? So let's just give that a try. And you can do it either way. So just find your mountain pose. Yeah, just nice and steady. And then maybe just trying both ways. So if you're taking that strength-based version, see if you can get the palms together and then reach the shoulders up away from your body and take the gaze up towards the thumbs. It might be uncomfortable, but that's sort of the point. And then release that down. And then let's try the other way. So that shoulder opening way, or whichever way you didn't try. Yeah, so maybe even coming into a little mini back bend and starting to take the gaze up and taking the gaze back. Yeah, gorgeous. So just knowing that these 2 different options are available to you at all points in your practice. So maybe you do one sun sal this way, one sun sal the other way, and you just get a different experience, okay? So any questions about that? I know it's fairly straightforward. Cool? Okay. So the next thing is the forward fold, right? So your inhale would be up. We're gonna go over all the breaths too. Your inhale would be up, and then on your exhale, you fold forward. So we were just talking about this before, what do you do if you have a belly or if you have thighs and you're trying to forward fold and you have everything, happening, taking up this space here, and it's okay, I can't fold forward anymore. So the best tip for that is take your feet a little bit wider. So if that applies to you, take your feet hip distance or even a little bit wider than hip distance apart for your forward fold, okay? So we're gonna inhale, take it up, however you wanna take it up. And then on my exhale, I like to sometimes bring my hands to the tops of my thighs and rotate my thighs out to send the pelvis up. So you're trying to get the tailbone to point up towards the sky. You can keep a soft bend in the knee here. What you don't want to do is round through the spine. So this is why your blocks are here. So you can bring your hands to those blocks or to your calves, or if they naturally reach the ground without that rounding of the spine, then that's fine too. So just stay here for a couple breaths. See if you bend into your knees, if you can send the point of your tailbone up towards the sky a little bit more. So you're looking for that connection between your thigh and your belly. That little sandwich is what helps the pelvis rotate up.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So bend your knees even more. Even more, even more, even more. And then it slowly, yeah, exactly. So this sandwich is awesome. Okay? And see if you can roll your shoulders back and down too. Soften them away from your ears. Awesome. And then gently come on up. So comments, questions, concerns, forward fold. Did that feel any different or change anything for anybody? Same old deal. So basically, the thing that I see a lot with forward folding, and it just comes from tight hamstrings, essentially, is, this shape, okay? So it's not that this shape isn't effective, but it bypasses the hamstring stretch because you compensate for it in the back arch, right? Because look at what my tailbone is doing here. If I'm rounded, tailbone is pointing down. But if I can bend my knees, hamstrings start to stretch, or whatever. Ooh, I just got a little crack, a little pop. Hamstrings start to stretch, that's when the tailbone starts to point up towards the sky. So if that means bending the knee so that you get this belly to thigh connection to make that happen, then this is awesome, whereas this sort of bypasses the point of the pose and avoids what is tricky about it, okay? So let's try it again from mountain pose. So as you're ready, inhale, just take your arms up. And then exhale, fold forward and down, send the pelvis back, create that space between your pelvis. Yeah, I like to pull the thighs back if that helps you. That's just a little helpful reminder for me. And then see about making that sandwich between your belly and your thigh to get the bottom point of the tailbone pointing up towards the sky. Yeah, and then see what it feels like not to do that. So straighten out the legs and round through the spine. You feel how all of a sudden your hamstrings just went on vacay? Yeah. And then come back to pelvis rotating up. Yeah. So we all feel that difference.
Mama, there you go.
Nod head?
There you go.
Okay, great. Okay, you can come on out.
There you go. Beautiful.
Okay, so questions about any of that? Nothing. Okay. So what do we do from there? The next thing we need to do is manage to get the hands down on the ground so that we can pull the chest forward to prepare for stepping back to plank. So again, a couple things here. It's not that coming up to the fingertips here is wrong. This is definitely one way to do it. I like to, though, bend my knees as much as possible to get my hands flat, because eventually my hands need to come down if I'm gonna step back to plank, right? So for me, instead of, straightening the legs and coming up to the fingertips here, I'm gonna bend my knees as much as I need to get my palms down and then start to look forward. So I'm still maintaining that same shape through my pelvis instead of rounding my back as I inhale, okay? So let's try that again from the start. So inhale, take the arms all the way up. Exhale, fold forward and down. Inhale, bend your knees as much as you need to bring the hands to blocks or flat on the ground, shoulder distance, like you were setting up to step back for plank or downward facing dog. Then just take your gaze slightly forward. Don't jerk your neck. So just look out and forward on your mat and roll your shoulders back and down. So you're trying to lengthen out the spine here while you're stretching all the way through the top of the hamstring. Do we all feel that? Awesome. And then gently come on out. Okay. So is that different already for anybody than maybe the way that you've been doing it at home? What's different? You can feel it through the top of your hamstring, right? Is that what you're all saying?
I have a ton of lower back pain.
Yeah.
That just relieves it completely.
So this is huge. This is one of the biggest reasons why people get low back pain from yoga, right? So your low back, and it's low back pain that everyone complains about, lumbar spine, right? So this happens for a few reasons. Your lumbar spine, the discs between the vertebrae as you move down your spine, get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So they can take less impact is essentially the way it works. Or I'm sorry, other way around, get bigger and bigger and bigger so they can take more impact as they go back. That's why people are naturally bendy in their low backs, right? So you have a natural S curve that goes up your spine like this. So your low back wants to curve this way, right? So as soon as you do this, right? Like for example, if you're forward folding like this, like this, it's hard for me to even do, like this, that is what's compressing that natural shape of my back, which leads over and over. It might not feel like anything on a daily basis, but over and over and over again, doing it like that, you will compress the vertebrae, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and have back pain. So it comes from this pelvis rotation, and that's sort of the key. So let's try it one more time, and then we'll check out plank. So mountain pose, close your eyes for a moment, just take a breath, set up here. We're just gonna keep working in pieces. Okay. So as you're ready, root down through your feet. Spread your feet apart on the mat energetically so that you engage all the way up from your feet to your hip points. And then inhale, take your arms up. Exhale, fold forward and down. Yeah. Hands flat on the ground somewhere. Ground, blocks, whatever is available to you. And then inhale, maintain that flat back. So you maintain the belly to thigh connection as you take the gaze forward and roll the shoulders back and down. Yeah, beautiful. And then gently come on up. Okay, awesome. I mean, it looks beautiful. Does it feel good for everyone? Cool. Okay. So the next part from here is stepping back into plank, okay? I'm like a plank fanatic, okay? I don't like it. I don't like plank pose. It's hard and it sucks. But it is one of the best total body strengthening poses that really gets you to activate and turn the fire on in your whole body. So if you hold plank long enough and you're holding it integrated, you're gonna start to shake and tremble, right? We've hopefully all experienced that. That is your body starting to say, hell yeah.
Yeah, you're not really feeling the pose unless you're trembling, honestly. Because
Exactly.
you need to feel your whole body come into engagement.
Exactly. So before we even go to step back, I'm gonna show you sort of the plank that I see a lot that is A, kind of dangerous for your low back, to be honest with you, and B, not really integrating the body and teaching you the shape, right? So like, it's all about the shape that you're making, right? And we want the shapes to translate as you continue to practice, right? So you want the shape that you make in plank to also be the same shape that you make somewhere else in a different pose. So this is what I see in plank. Two things that I see in plank a lot is sort of this dip here in the shoulder, or I see like this, which is like, I'm scared.
It's super dangerous.
Okay? Danger. Literally, danger is that plank, because your low back is taking all of the weight, essentially, of the pose because there's no muscle integration happening. So the first thing, come on down to hands and knees, actually, for just a second. So you know when we cat-cow, right? When we come to that place of pressing the floor away, or for example, when we did the shoulder rotation and I told you to protract your shoulders, this move, right? So if I put a hand in between your shoulder blades, that space is puffed up towards the ceiling. Exactly, okay? That shape is what I want you to maintain when we come into plank, okay? So memorize that shape. We got it? Okay, so now let's try for plank. So let's just do it right from here. So we're in tabletop. We press up through the shoulders. See if you can just keep the arms straight, keep the shoulders straight. Make sure your fingers are spread nice and wide. Wrists parallel with the front of the mat, hands shoulder distance. Step one foot back, keep the shoulder press. Step the other foot back. Don't lose the core, right? So the hips, I want you to think about your whole back rounding. More. Yeah, exactly, okay? So it's like, puff this up towards me more. Press into the ground. Yes. So awesome. Tuck your tailbone down a little bit more. Come on down. Does that feel different? Harder? Easier? Easier? Harder?
Oh, that's interesting. Can you speak to that
Different?
a little bit? Oh, totally.
Okay, exactly, right? Because, well, so this version of plank, you're actually using your strength to keep you up instead of relying on your joints, essentially. So this is why all of these things are really important when you practice, because most yoga injuries, unless you're like pulling a hamstring or something like that, most injuries accumulate over time and come from repetition of doing something that doesn't hurt when you do it. But then again, all of a sudden one day you wake up and you're like, oh my God, my back. And it's like, well, maybe I've been doing this in my plank for like a year and your back was just like, we're done. Okay? So that's why this shit is super important. Okay, so one other thing about plank. There are like two versions of, a strong plank. There's sort of the straight version of plank that, like if you see people planking in a gym, you're gonna see that kind of plank. And then there's like a yoga plank that I call a high plank. And it just sort of mimics the shape, again, of other poses that you're gonna encounter as you practice, like crow is like the big one that I like to relate this to. It's the exact same shape, right? So again, when you come to a gym or you see someone planking, it looks like, tailbone pointing down, very straight body line. For the yoga plank, you want the whole back rounded. So it's like the whole front side of your body is like zipping up to the back side of your body. And maybe you can even come to the very tiptoes and start to take the shoulders forward as you press away. So you see how that shape is just different? It's not that one is right or wrong. It's just a different shape that's gonna get your body ready for these other poses. Okay? So let's try it from standing. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay, so mountain pose. I'm sweating. I'm sweating from that 20 seconds of plank. You see what I'm saying? Okay, mountain pose. Inhale as you're ready, take the arms up. Exhale, fold forward and down. Inhale, hands flat on something. Look forward, roll your shoulders back and down. So the hands have to be flat here because you're starting to prepare for that plank. So start pressing into the knuckles and the fingertips so that the arms are straight and the shoulder girdle is already engaged and puffing up. See if you can keep your shoulders where they are. So right over your wrist, step back to plank. Yeah, and then press the ground away even more. Imagine that you could press the ground away with your belly.
Hell yeah, nice.
Oh. Yeah.
Just a tiny bit more.
So the whole back is rounded.
Nice.
Can you round this a little more? Ooh, yeah. I know it's hard. I know it sucks. You're like, don't come over to me and put your hand there.
Hell yeah.
Press up from here a little more.
Yeah.
Ah.
Spread your fingers just a little bit.
Okay, hold.
Nice, there you go.
Are you shaking?
Really, really good.
Shake for like 5 more seconds.
Push up
5,
into my hand real quick. There you
4,
go. Nice. Hell yeah.
3,
Spread your fingers super wide.
tiptoes, 2,
There you go. Hell
1,
yeah,
drop
hell
down.
Yeah, nice.
Holy
That's
shit,
Mom.
right? Am I right?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So like totally different than what we've been doing? Okay, so here's the other thing, like, this is like my favorite like vinyasa like joke situation because I also do this all the time. The teacher's not looking, like, okay, vinyasa, one side, you're like, done. Right? It's like, no one looks like, literally, your chaturanga's like, up, down, up, and I'm back, down dog, we're done. Right? So it's like, you're literally skipping all of like the benefits of the poses when you do it like that. So I'm usually, when I'm in class, I'm like the last person to come back to down dog in a vinyasa because I'm doing everything so slowly so that I can be engaged, right? It's like all about that control and endurance. That's how you build endurance. Literally, that is how. If you're skipping through it and rushing through it every time, you're not building up that fire and that intensity in your body to maintain it throughout the entire class eventually someday. Okay? Let's do it one more time because I'm a masochist. Let's go. Okay. Come to stand.
Masochism.
Okay. Mountain pose. Come to the very tops of your mats. Yeah. Cool. Feel free to use the blocks. As you're ready, inhale, arms up.
Beautiful, y'all. This is lovely.
Exhale, fold forward and down. Flat back. Belly to thigh connection. Hands flat, like you're gonna step back to plank. Inhale to look forward. Strong arms, strong shoulders. See if you can keep the shoulders right where they are and step back, high plank. Whole back is rounded. Zip, like you literally had a zipper from the bottom of your vagina all the way up to your forehead. Zip it up. Yeah, more. Press the ground away, more.
Look forward.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm like obsessed. Yeah, more.
Oh yeah, nice.
5,
Nice. Push up right here into my hand.
4, hands shoulder distance. 3, 2, 1, come down.
Can I make one
yes.
little comment? Whenever y'all are coming down into the high plank, make sure you've got your hands at shoulder distance
Yes.
apart. When they're in a little bit close, it's super hard to hold this for a long time. Like, in the event that someone said to hold it for 5 minutes, it would be like impossible to do that. And then also make sure that you're like really hands just like Spider-Man, dude, like so wide open so that you can really catch everything. When they're more like this, it's really hard to do that.
Absolutely. And that comes really from, you know, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about chaturanga, but your joints are essentially just the happiest when they're stacked one on top of the other. And when they're not, you put a lot of pressure on your joints. And this is something, again, that's going to come up when we do chaturanga, but it's happening here too, right? So if your hands are too close together, right, your elbow joint is doing a lot more than it needs to because you're not as engaged through the shoulder girdle as you could be if you were broadening here instead of pushing from here. So all the time, it's like, what can I line up, right? So it's like wrist, elbow, shoulder, or whatever it is, okay? So definitely paying attention to that is super important. Okay, the next pose is the worst of them all. Chaturanga Dandasana, I hate you. Okay, so this is like the hardest pose.
Hardest pose.
Literally, like in
Definitely.
the entire yoga practice, in
Hardest
my
yoga
humble
asana.
opinion, this is the hardest pose. And this is what I think is like funny about it. It's like you go to a class and they're like, okay, vinyasa. And you're like, well, wait a minute. The hardest pose that I've ever done is in this, and I'm getting no like breakdown of how to do it. I don't know what I'm doing. This is where more injuries come up. People fuck up their elbows, and rotator cuffs and all of these things come from repetition, again, of especially chaturanga being like super wonky. So we're gonna look at modified chaturanga today, just for like safety purposes. And if full chaturanga is something you're already comfortable with, then like by all means, please do that. Okay? So first I'm gonna show what I see a lot for chaturanga. Okay, one of the first things that I see, so pretend I was in high plank and now I just dropped my knees down. So I'm still here, I'm still pressing through the shoulders. This is the first thing that I see. Elbows out. Oh my God, I like can't even do it because it's so, my shoulder's gonna fall off, okay? So when you're doing that, right, when your elbows come out to the side over here, not only are you, what the hell is my wrist doing? First of all, it's like everything is doing like
Breaking.
breaking,
Yeah.
literally breaking. Your wrist is like bending in a way it doesn't need to bend. Your elbow is taking so much pressure that it doesn't need to take, and your rotator cuff is doing like crazy shit that it does not want to do. So that's thing number one, is the elbows. You want to keep the elbows hugging into the sides of your body at all times in chaturanga. No flare out, chicken wings, as Jasmine calls it. None of this shit. This, okay? This. Okay. So the other thing that I see all the time, right, is we're here and maybe the elbows go out, maybe the elbows go back, but we see like this, where the shoulder point comes down way, way, way before the elbow. So the elbow comes back, shoulder goes down like this. Okay. Your rotator cuff, this thing right here, is not meant to bear weight. It's a joint, right? There's a joint. And you can feel it. Like find your collarbone, this little nubby thing right here, and just walk out. Walk it, walk it, walk it, and you'll get to a nubby point on your shoulder. This is your joint, okay? So when you do this, you lose the engagement, oh my God, and put all of the weight on the joint of the shoulder instead of in the muscle, right? And it's not meant to bear weight. So if you do that over and over and over again, you wear the joint down, and that's where rotator cuff injuries come from. So what's the key? The key is stacking the joints, right? Again, if I'm doing this, nothing is stacking. If I'm doing this, nothing is stacking. So it's just this constant, what can I line up to make this pose engaged a little bit better? So the key is moving forward, and that's what makes it hard. And this is why people don't like to do it like this, is because it makes your muscles do some shit that the other versions don't really do, okay? So spreading my fingers nice and wide, like Jessamine just said, make sure your hands are shoulder distance, wrists parallel with the front of the mat always. So it's like I just came down from plank. Now instead of lowering from right here, I'm gonna move forward. So I'm gonna start to look forward and move my shoulder forward, because what I want is when I lower down, I want my elbow to stay over the line of my wrist the entire time. I don't want it to come back, okay? So that looks like this. So I'm gonna move forward, look forward, super key here, don't look down, look forward, keep moving forward, then hug the elbows into the side body. So none of this. Elbows wrap in, shoulders wrap out, and I'm gonna keep moving forward and lower. okay? So you see as I'm doing that, my elbow is staying right over the line of my wrist, nothing back, and I can feel that burn, trust me, all the way up through my bicep and my tricep and my shoulder, so there's no joint pain because the muscle is doing all the work, right? So it's like, we're here in plank. I'm looking forward, I'm thinking forward. That's why I like to come to the tiptoes, move the shoulders forward in plank, drop the knees down, keep looking forward, keep that momentum, hug the elbows in, squeeze it in, and come all the way down. And when you come down, take a look behind you and see what's going on. If your elbow is right about over the line of your wrist, you're good to go. And you're already set up for cobra, or whatever you're gonna move into, okay? Let's try.
Let's do it.
Let's try from standing. Endurance. Okay, mountain pose. As you're ready, inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold forward and down. Inhale, palms flat. Look forward, roll the shoulders back and down. Keep the shoulders where they are. Straight arms, strong shoulders, step back. High plank. Hold the high plank for a beat. Now, if you can, roll to the tiptoes and start to take the shoulders forward of the wrists. Look forward, keep the shoulders where they are, drop the knees. Don't lose the arm strength. Now keep looking forward, keep moving forward, hug your elbows in towards your side body. Look forward, not down. Shoulders move forward, yeah. All the way down. Now, before you lose yourself, look back and just see what's happening. Is the elbow about over the line of the wrist? Or is the elbow behind the line of the wrist? What's going on? How are we feeling? I don't know. What do I look like? You gotta tell me. Everyone looks pretty good. Okay, was that like super hard?
Yes.
Yeah, hell yeah it was. Okay, again. Okay, we're gonna do it a few times because you have to. You have to do it a few times before your body starts to be like, okay, this is what we're doing. Yeah, so top of the mat. Mountain pose. Beautiful. Don't forget to look forward when you lower down. It's like so key. Okay, inhale, take the arms up. Exhale, fold forward and down. Inhale, flat palms, flat back, look forward. Press the palms into the ground, keep the shoulders where they are, strong arms, step back, high plank. Tiptoes if you can, shoulders forward if you can, look forward. Keep looking forward, drop the knees, don't lose the arms. Keep looking forward, keep moving forward, hug the elbows in, start to bend the arms, roll the shoulders onto the back, squeeze, all the way down. Oh my gosh, so good. How we doing? Okay, release. So, I'm done. Okay, so talk to me a little bit. What's different? What are we feeling? It's harder, it's easier. What?
I definitely feel more engaged.
More engaged. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not, I don't feel like it anywhere here. It's all up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, does anyone feel particularly strong up here whenever you're coming down? Like, with that way of really feeling like the fingertips are getting the grip, the shoulders are starting to stack over.
Yeah.
You feel it coming much more into this upper body space.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she's right. You know, so the more engaged you are through the core and through the upper body, again, the less work your joints have to do to carry the weight, right? You want to carry the weight with muscle, not with your structure of your body, right? Because you're going to wear it down. So any questions about that? Anybody feel like they're still, please ask questions if you have them. Don't have the strength and dropping. Yes. Okay. Awesome, first of all, because that was me, and that is how you learn. So she's talking about how, you know, she feels like she's coming into the shape correctly, but then she gets to a certain point and just needs to drop down. Drop down. That's amazing. It is better to lower with that right shape, that right alignment, come to where you can, and then just come down to the ground. Better to do that than like anything else to bypass or shortcut, because look, this shape is the exact same shape as chaturanga. It's just with your knees down. That's it. So if you lifted the knees up off the ground, nothing would change. And that's the idea. So as you do this with repetition, the modified gets easier to the point where you can lower, 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 nice and slow, maybe even hover for a second and then come down. And then one day you've got all the upper body strength. The shape is there. You just lift the knees and you do it right from plank. So that's awesome. Let's do it one more time.
Yay.
So regardless of your knees being up or down, you're going to have that
Exactly.
No, you're good, please.
Yes, so she's saying the upper body shape is not going to change if your knees are up or down. That's exactly correct. You still want to think forward, move the shoulders forward, no matter if you drop the knees down or not. So that's why the knee drop is the last thing that I cue, right? So I'm like, press through your shoulders, keep moving the shoulders forward, look forward like you were about to do chaturanga, and then just do it, but drop the knees down, okay? So let's try it again. So top of the mat, mountain pose. Inhale, arms come up.
Beautiful.
Exhale, fold forward and down. You guys look amazing. Inhale, look forward, shoulders roll back, palms flat on the ground. Start to activate the strength through your arms. Spread your fingers super, super wide, wrists parallel with the front of the mat. Keep the shoulders where they are. Exhale, step back, high plank.
Hell yeah.
Now hold your plank for an inhale. Roll up to the tiptoes. Now look forward, shoulders forward. I know you're shaking. Keep it in that position. Look forward, move forward. Elbows start to hug into the side body. Then drop the knees down, or you do full chaturanga if it's in your practice.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Elbows hugging in. Yeah. Gorgeous, everyone. Beautiful. And it should, do you feel safer doing it like that? Yeah. That's sort of the key, right? Because how many times do you go to a yoga class and the teacher is cueing shit and you're just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like my whole body just feels like it's out here, like in the oblivion. But this is also like confidence building, right? Because if you have a little bit better idea of what you're doing when you go to yoga class, it's a lot less scary to be in the yoga class. So like, yeah.
This also
Yeah.
This also feels a lot like I can do it. Whereas like when my elbows were out, I was like, I can't do this.
Because you're making it harder. So she just said, before she was doing it with the elbows flaring out and it felt awkward and hard, essentially. And that's how that should feel, because that's not the way the body is supposed to move. So as you start to come into the alignment that your body wants to make, things may seem harder, but actually after you do them a few times, it's actually easier. And that's sort of the key here. So any questions about chaturanga? There's a lot happening in that pose. So anything? Okay, cool. Okay, so now the next thing is the back bend. So you have a couple options here as well. You have cobra and you have upward facing dog. So again, cobra, I like to do both. But I like to start with cobra because cobra is actually a little bit stronger in certain ways than upward facing dog is if you have natural flexibility in your back. So I'm someone whose low back is like bends in half, just like naturally. So upward facing dog sort of encourages that back bend to happen, whereas cobra pose, you keep the pelvis down on the ground and it's much more strengthening through the front and the back side of the body. So this is where I'm gonna give you those options. If you need a little more flexibility, upward facing dog. Awesome. If you want a little more strength, cobra might be the way to go. So I'm going to show it from this mat up here for you guys at home. Okay, so it's like you were in plank, you came down, chaturanga, maybe hover for a second and then come all the way down to the ground. Then I like to just walk my knees back a little bit just to create a little bit more space. Now, upward facing dog, no matter which you're doing, cobra or up dog, you want to make sure that the tops of the feet are pressing into the ground. If you're doing cobra, the legs are so engaged because the feet are pressing that the kneecaps lift up, okay? So a lot of the time what happens in any pose is we sort of bring the focus to one area of the body and the other part of the bodies just go on vacation, okay? The legs, that sort of happens with in cobra and up dog because we're so forward focused in general and in these poses. So don't forget about your legs. So, and actually, I'm such a rambler, oh my God. Actually, the activation through your feet and through your legs is actually the thing that releases your low back in these poses. So if you lose the leg engagement, you actually compress the low back. Whereas if you have the leg engagement, you release the low back. So just something else to think about. Okay, so I'm down, inch my knees back a little bit to create some more space. I'm gonna take my feet a little wide, about the distance of my mat, maybe a little closer than that. Press the tops of my feet down, kneecaps lift up, okay? Now my pelvis stays down, but that doesn't mean I'm like chilling here. So my core is still engaged, pelvis just stays down. Now, if I came down from chaturanga, I should already be in the right alignment to just come right into Cobra, right? So I'm gonna keep everything the way it is. I'm gonna roll the shoulders onto the back and hug the elbows into each other, just like we do for Chaturanga, and I'm just gonna lift up. And I'm only gonna lift up so much that the hands could come up off the ground. So the idea is not to push into the hands to lift up. The idea is to use your core and your back strength, your back muscles to lift up instead, okay? And if your hands are on the ground, it's fine, but instead of pressing, I want you to think about pulling back. So you drag the heel of your hand back towards your body and allow that to pull your chest forward instead of pressing down. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's try Cobra. I won't make you stand. Come down. Okay. So you're down like you just did Chaturanga, right? So your hands are right under your elbows. Your elbows are squeezing in towards your side body so they're in line with your shoulders. Awesome. From here, tops of the feet down on the mat. Press the tops of the feet down so much that the kneecaps lift up. Engage out through your toes. Yeah. Now start to peel the chest up, only so much so, and you can look forward, that you can all lift your hands up off the mat. Now bring the hands back down, stay where you are, drag the heel of the hand energetically back towards your body, and see if you can pull the chest through the arms a little bit more by doing that. See if you can still lift the hands. Beautiful. And come back down. How does that feel? Good? Different from other Cobra options? So I think the biggest difference there is the hands, right? A lot of the time we don't get the cue of being able to lift the hands up still, and so we're pressing into the hands in order to lift the back. But again, we want to build the strength in this pose, right? Every pose has a different purpose, and that's like the point. In this pose, the purpose is to strengthen the front and the back side of your body. It's not so much about the arms for Cobra, okay? So I want you to think, what can I do here to lift higher? It's like locust, right? It's like very similar to locust pose. And actually, I think I saw some of you kind of come into that where the legs also lift up. It's like the same concept here. The legs are just staying down and I'm lifting from the core and the back side of my body instead. Yeah? Okay. I mean, it's just a different pose. Sometimes you're so engaged. She just asked, her feet come up off the ground when she's trying this. And that can happen just because you're so engaged through the legs. I don't think that it's a bad thing, but just see if you can keep the tops of the feet pressing down because, again, that releases the low back kind of out through the toes. Okay? So let's all come up to stand, and we'll try that variation, and then we'll check out upward facing dog. Okay, mountain pose, top of the mat. Inhale, arms come up. Exhale, fold forward and down. Inhale, flat back, look forward, start to engage through the arms. Flat palms, spread your fingers as wide as possible, shoulder distance apart. Keep the shoulders right where they are. If you can, step back, high plank on your exhale. Inhale, roll forward to the tiptoes, move the shoulders forward, look forward. Keep the forward momentum, drop your knees, hug your elbows in on the exhale, look forward, look forward, look forward. Hover all the way down. Beautiful Chaturangas, amazing. Now keep your arms exactly where they are, press the tops of your feet down so the kneecaps lift up, engage out through your tippy toes, and then just start to peel the chest forward on an inhale. Take the gaze right out in front of you. Roll the shoulder blades onto the back so it's like you're squeezing your shoulder blades together. Beautiful. Lift your hands up. Are you breathing? Lift a little higher, only with your core and your back. Lift a little higher, stronger than you think. Exhale, come down. Okay? So, what's going on? Anything? Yeah, the hunching.
Happens, yeah.
The hunching is a real thing in a lot of poses, right? And it's just an area of tension, and we're all sort of prone to doing different types of tightening in unnecessary places in the body in various poses, and it's just sort of pinpointing those things and seeing where you can soften, right? So one of my teachers said to me the other day, she was like, the point, the first part of the physical practice is you get to the pose and then you relax. And I was like, wow, I'm not doing that. Am I doing that? I was like, I am out here doing the absolute most at all times. Literally. And it's like some people's personalities are going to be like that, and other people are going to be straight chilling at all times in the pose. So it's about coming to a place of balance. So where can I engage more, and where can I chill more, right? So there has to be some sort of balance there. You don't have to have every single part of your body like full throttle at all times. It's about like coming to a place where you're strong and integrated, but also very calm and relaxed at the same time. So any other questions about Cobra? Is that Cobra different? Feel different from other things? Yeah, okay. More engaged, yeah, cool. Okay, so upward facing dog. So I'll show you guys here first so you can see, and then I'll move to the other mat to show. So up dog, different, very different pose. For upward facing dog, everything comes up off the ground except your palms and the tops of your feet. So now we've moved into more arm strength, and this is where it sort of varies from Cobra, right? So Cobra is sort of this sandwich of strength. Upward facing dog is a lot more shoulder awareness. So again, it's just like, what do I need to build and what do I need to not focus on as much, maybe? And that's what can determine which pose you want to do. So up dog, same concept. You came down from chaturanga. The arms are aligned here. Now, I like to take my hands just slightly forward of where that would be for upward facing dog because I'm going to roll forward onto the tops of my feet to bring my chest forward. Now, before I come up, some teachers are going to cue open the shoulders, roll the shoulders back in upward facing dog. I personally, and it's just personal preference, I like to roll my shoulders forward because I feel that when they are rolled forward, they are more prepared to bear weight, essentially, because of that stacking. So same concept as what I just said in Cobra, where instead of pressing down, you're pulling back to pull the chest through. I want you to think about the same thing in upward facing dog. So when I come up, right, into up dog, instead of opening the shoulders, I'm gonna roll the shoulders forward, but then drag my hands back, do you see this? To pull the chest through here instead of like here. So two things that happen when I do that. I like it because it actually lengthens out my low back a little bit more. And I don't know if you can see that when I'm doing it, but I can feel it. So when I roll the shoulders forward to pull the chest through, there's more engagement here and less cranking than if I just kind of open up everything and bend into that shape. So I'll do it over here so we can see it from all sides. So again, up dog with the shoulders rolled back looks like this. Shoulders forward, chest through looks like this. Very subtly different, but you can feel the difference in your body. So I want you to try both ways to see what feels better for you. I, again, like the shoulders forward because my low back is naturally bendy. If you don't have a naturally bendy low back, this might not be an issue for you, okay? But the key is, again, stacking. So shoulders right over the line of the palms. Everything is engaged, so I like to kind of come up flat back first and then start to pull my chest through. Everything is lifted and engaged super strong through the entire body. Upward facing dog. It's actually a really challenging pose.
Upward facing dog is very challenging.
Like very challenging.
To do it correctly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's try.
You will go from the floor.
Yeah, from the floor, and then we'll move from there. Ooh, I'm dying, people. I'm dying. Okay. So again, just pretending like you came down from chaturanga. I like to bring my hands a little bit forward, but that's just my setup. We're gonna do it a few times so you can figure out what works for you. As you're ready, tops of the feet press down. Start to engage the whole body like you were gonna lift into a locust, and then start to press into the arms. Press into the arms, lift, 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 lift. Pelvis comes up, everything comes up. See what feels good through your shoulders. So try rolling the shoulders forward and then dragging the hands back to pull the chest through, and then try rolling the shoulders onto the back and see which one feels better for you. Does anybody feel the difference anywhere in their back? Okay, come on down for a second. What's happening? Someone talk to me.
I hate up dog.
You hate up dog. Valid comment. She hates up dog. Yeah.
What is it about it that you hate so much? Like, what is it specifically?
I have the flexibility like you, so I just can't find like what feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that. I usually take Cobra, honestly. I take a couple of upward facing dogs just to sort of release while I practice. But if you have that hyper flexibility in your low back, Cobra really, I think, is maybe a safer,
it's safer,
honestly,
definitely.
option than upward facing dog. So, and I mean, we both talk about this shit all the time.
Yeah.
Do not feel like you need to do a certain variation of a pose just because someone else is doing it, or even just because the teacher cues it.
Well, and it's a very different pose from Cobra. And if you're coming through a lot of vinyasas, like especially maybe by the 5th or 6th one, you're going to get to a place where you don't, your pelvis wants to lift up, the quads want to engage, you come onto the tops of the feet. You do it because it's time, not because somebody said to do it. So that's why there's the Cobra up dog option, because you don't necessarily have to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where the listening to your body part comes in, right?
Yeah.
Just because the teacher says something doesn't mean that you do it, like honestly. And everything that I'm telling you right now is subjective. Every time you go to a new teacher, they're going to tell you different things, always. So you have the authority to sort of determine what feels good and what feels right in your body, and that's sort of the point. You're just absorbing all the information so that you have the options, right? And so it's like sometimes up dog is the right pose at the time, and sometimes Cobra is the right pose at the time. But do we have questions about up dog, the shape?
I have a notice, and it's something that I said before. It's the finger thing. Yeah. So like whenever you come up, it feels really intensely if you don't spread through your whole hand. And I did notice a couple of like these sandwich fingers going on. So like if you really make sure the arms are at shoulder distance and kind of think of them as scaffolding holding up your body, so that like down here you don't need it because you have scaffolding in different parts, but it's just the strengthening. You want to make sure that your scaffolding is as strong as it can possibly be.
Definitely.
It's not just ornamental.
Let me see everyone's hands, like you were going to come into up dog. What's going on?
Yay. Yay.
How are we doing?
This is really a lot
now
better than it
kicked into
was.
high
I know.
gear.
I was
We
like,
am
all right.
learned.
Okay, guys. Good.
This is what I was talking about, right? When you're in class, the teacher's not looking at me. Let me just vinyasa, done. No, not here, not today. Okay, so let's come up to stand, and we'll try up dog version now. See how that goes. Mountain pose. Take a second, just gather yourself. As you're ready, inhale, arms come up. Exhale takes you down.
Beautiful.
Inhale, flat palms on something. Now this is where you, look, pause for a moment here. This is where you set up for the entire rest of your vinyasa. The idea is that once your hands come down, once your hands come down here, they don't move again. That's sort of the idea. Hands plant and then they do not move. Everyone check out your wrist creases. See if they're really, really parallel. Sometimes you can turn the hands out just slightly more than you think you need to find that parallel wrist. So even for you, bring your hands out a little more, like beautiful. Okay, now from here, start to engage through the arms, strong shoulders. Keep the shoulders where they are, step it on back, high plank. Hands don't move again, so make sure you have the hands set up like dead on, okay? Inhale, high plank. Tiptoes if you got it. Look forward, start to move forward, momentum forward. As you exhale, drop the knees, hug the elbows in, roll the shoulders onto the back, come all the way down, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing this time, so everything comes off the ground except the tops of the feet and the hands. Choose your shoulder rotation, open or forward. Either way, pull the chest through the arms. That's the idea here. Extend out through the tiptoes to release the low back, and then exhale, just come back down. What's going on? Quads. Leg engagement, okay? Yes. So Jessamine and I were talking about this the other day. We were talking about like standing poses and how, in general, we are very forward thinking in like life, right? We're always like, what are we doing over here? And what's coming next? And we sort of lose the back. And the exact same thing happens in yoga. Like how many times have you like come into Warrior 2 and you're like, okay, I'm the arms engaged and I'm like, and you lean forward and you kind of lose the back leg and it goes on vacation. And then all of a sudden you realize if you engage it, the pose becomes a lot easier and a lot safer and all of these things. So it's the exact same thing. It's like, it's not just the shoulders and the arms. Your legs can also lift your legs. Everything can lift itself, right? And that's kind of the idea. Okay, so what's everyone's preference? Cobra or up dog? I'm just curious. Cobra's all around. Cobra. Everyone? She likes up dog? You like up dog?
Yes.
Why do you like it better? I'm just curious.
I feel like it engages more.
Okay, interesting. Well, and see, and this is the point. Yeah. It's like some of you are going to feel like Cobra is like way more intense and up dog is going to feel, so it's just like, not forget the teacher, not going to say that because here I am teaching you, so don't forget me. But, but at the same time, like you got to make your own decisions. It's your body and you got to stay safe. Okay, What is next? Downward facing dog, okay? So we'll talk about the transition in a second, but first I just wanna actually look at down dog. So just come into what your normal downward facing dog looks like when you practice. I just wanna see what's going on. Okay, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Come on down. Okay, so a couple things that happen in down dog. First thing that is most common, I'm not seeing too much of it here, just a little bit. This is another hamstring situation, okay? We have an obsession with the feet coming down in downward facing dog. Fuck the feet, literally.
Actually.
I don't care if your feet come down. It's like literally the last thing that matters in downward facing dog is the heels coming to the ground is fully irrelevant, okay? And you need a lot of hamstring flexibility to maintain the rest of the shape of the pose while getting the heels down to the ground. So what happens if you don't have that hamstring flexibility, but you're trying to get the heels down, is the exact same thing that happens here is gonna happen here. So we see this a lot in downward facing dog, where what's happening? My tailbone is pointing down. I want it to point up, okay? And that's where that hamstring flexibility comes into play. So come back into down dog for just a second. And I want you to bend your knees, like a lot, like really bend your knees, so that you're creating that same belly to thigh connection we did in the forward fold. Send your pelvis all the way up to the sky as much as you can, and then see if you can maintain that as you start to lower the heels down to the ground. And as soon as you start to feel the back round, that's where you stop. Okay, everyone already looks different. Come down. Beautiful. Does that feel different for anyone? It looked different. Yeah, okay. So that's thing number one. And again, so every pose sort of has its purpose. Downward facing dog is that hamstring flexibility and flat back, just like the forward fold, sort of same concept, okay? So next most important thing in down dog, hands, right? Again, same thing, hands super, super spread wide. Remember that exercise we did at the beginning where the knuckles are pressing down into the ground, the palms lift. The idea is not that one day your palms are actually lifted in downward facing dog, but hypothetically they could be, because so much of the weight is in the knuckles and in the feet. So this is another area of like mass confusion where we feel like, well, first of all, you have gravity pulling your body down, right? So that automatically brings the weight of your body forward into your hands and into your shoulders, when actually you want the majority of the weight in your feet and in your legs, which takes what? A shit ton of shoulder strength to lift up out of them and send the weight back like that. So what does that look like? It's very subtle. I'm gonna try and show you. So my fingers are spread wide, wrists are parallel, shoulder distance apart, spidey fingers as Jess called them yesterday, and I like that. Okay, so here I am in down dog, but here I'm sort of like flumping into the shoulders here. So really all of the weight is in the front side of my body, and the back side of my body is doing essentially nothing right now. So check out my shoulders. I'll turn around so that you guys can see too. This side of the room, watch the shoulders. Nothing?
It's like pulling a cord up out of your shoulder
Lifting.
blades. Mm-hmm.
Nothing? Lifting. And so that lift is what encourages the weight to go back towards the hips, back towards the heels. Let me show it this way.
I so wish we could do a slow-mo, like a game day, arrows around, shoulders
Yes.
pull back. 'Cause that's real.
I love it.
That's
Okay,
real.
so it looks like this. This is kind of chilling. All the weight is like collapsing on my wrist and in my shoulder girdle here, and then I'm gonna lift up out of that and send the weight back towards my heels. Nothing. Engagement. You guys see that? Yeah, it's a pretty significant difference, right? And it's like a weird distinction that I don't hear a lot of teachers make, that is kind of the thing that makes it a lot easier on your wrist. Because here's the other thing, right? If I can take so much of the weight back into my legs that I am lifted away from my hands like this, maybe I could do down dog without my palms. Mm-hmm. They're not necessary because my legs and my core are doing the work and not my wrists, which is sort of the point, okay? So you want to flat back, you want to lift up and out of your shoulders as much as possible, and you want that tailbone tipping up towards the sky just like your forward fold. So again, the best thing to think about here is that same forward fold action, lengthening the spine, lengthening the hamstrings. Okay, let's try it again. And try not to dunk the chest forward too much. You want to stay lifted and engaged through the arms, so you're sort of making equal distance with both sides of the body. If you're hyper flexible like I am, it's like kind of easy to bring the head down to the ground. Try to avoid that. And then you can take the gaze in between the toes or even up in between the thighs if the flexibility is there, but don't crank your neck to do it. Now roll your shoulders away from each other, just like we do in plank, away from your ears, while energetically squeezing the arms towards each other.
This is so beautiful.
Spread your fingers nice and wide. Lift up and out of your shoulders so the weight comes back into your heels. Keep a soft bend in the knee if you want one. It's totally fine. When your teacher comes around and comes on you and presses your hips back like this, that's exactly what they're trying to do. Take the weight back into your legs. Hold it for one more beat. And then exhale, come down. Is that different for anyone? What's different? It's easier. So this shit is so funny to me because every single time we teach this workshop, that is the response, is that by the end, the vinyasa sort of got harder in some ways because of the engagement, but ultimately it's actually easier because you're engaging the body. And that's literally all it is. And sometimes you don't even realize that you're dumping on joints because you don't know what it feels like not to dump on the joint. And this is what that feels like. It's whole body engagement so that you can take the weight up and out of your wrist. This is where the wrist pain in yoga comes from, is this collapsing, right? Because what happens if you're not lifting up and out of the shoulder and you're collapsed on the wrist, right? This is where people start to get sore. Like, you know, when you're holding down dog for a long time and this pad of your hand starts to just feel like it's like cramping, that's where this comes from, okay? Let's do it one more time, down dog, and then we'll link it all together. So again, fingers wide, wrists parallel with the front of the mat. You can turn your hands out just a little bit. Like, let me see. You can turn your hands out a little bit more, okay?
Oh, yeah.
You can also turn your hands out a little bit more. Beautiful. Lift up and away from your shoulder girdle so that so much of the weight comes into the feet. Even if the heels are not down on the ground, it's fine.
It's fucking beautiful.
And I want you to think of actually lifting the armpits a little bit more, towards me more. Yeah. Roll the shoulders away.
There you go.
Beautiful. Okay? Come on down. These are some amazing down dogs. They feel good? Sweet.
Yeah.
Gnarly. Okay, let's put it all together, and then we'll talk about that transition in a second, but just come up to stand. We will work through it in a moment. Okay, top of the mat. Man, you guys still got to flow. It's like we get done with this and you're like, what are we doing now? I'm done. Okay, inhale, take the arms up. Exhale, fold forward and down. Inhale, prepare the hands for the entire rest of the vinyasa. Spread those fingers wide, wrists parallel with the front of the mat, strong through the arms, look forward. Exhale, keep the shoulders right where they are. Start to step back, high plank. Now, inhale, look forward, start to move the shoulders forward, keep pressing and rounding through the back. Exhale, bend your knees, squeeze the elbows into the side body, hug the shoulders onto the back, look forward, all the way down. Inhale for your back bend, cobra or upward facing dog, your choice. Exhale, just come back down, press back through your knees like you were gonna come to a child's pose, and then come up to downward facing dog. Way safer for your back than any of that twerking nonsense that happens. Take about 2 breaths here just to reset the spine. Really, really nice down dogs. Yeah.
This is like the down dog of my dreams. This is beautiful.
And then come on down. Okay, so the last thing that I forgot to mention about down dog that I just want to mention real quick is the distance of your down dog. Is this a question that people have? Yeah. Okay. So it's like, how far do my feet need to be from my hands? My favorite indicator for this is when you shift forward to a plank, do you adjust your feet? If you adjust your feet, that footing is where your downward facing dog should be. So everyone come into their plank for a second, and then we'll be done. Plank for a second, and then send it back down dog. And you might find that now that you've taken a wider stance, you need to bend your knees. Different. Come forward to plank again without moving any of your hands or feet. Is it right? Are we good? Exhale, back down dog one more time. Inhale, forward plank. Round, 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 press the ground away. Exhale, down dog. Drop the knees down, take a beat. Let's take a child's pose. Whew. So we just did a lot of work. So take a couple breaths here to just reset. Come back to your breath. And just take a moment here to notice what kind of thoughts come up as we practice some of these poses. So maybe they've gotten easier, or maybe they've gotten harder, or maybe something seems really, really challenging and just out of reach at this point, which may be true. But the difference is how you approach that fact, how you approach that challenge. You basically have two lenses that you can look through. You can look through the lens of, I'm not good enough for this, I'm not strong enough for this, I'm never going to be able to do this, my body isn't right, whatever. And we've definitely all been there. Or you can see the challenge, see the thing that might be difficult for you right now, and see it from a place of possibility. See it from a place of, maybe one day I can do this if I can just continue to try. And that is the most important part. Continuing to try. So stay in these child's poses for a few more breaths. If you're with us at home, stay in this child's pose as long as you like. This is the end of the tutorial section. So if you're at home, as you're ready, whenever you're ready, come on out of the child's pose, and we will meet you back here for the flow portion of this workshop.